Welcome and thank you for standing by. Parties will be on a listen-only mode for the duration of today's call. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would like to turn the call over to Deb Riviera. Thank you. You may begin.
Great. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day so far. Thank you for joining us for this month's webinar on 2020 Census Redistricting Data and how to find it on data.census.gov. In today's webinar, we will be demonstrating how to make the most out of the Census Bureau's data platform to find 2020 redistricting data. My name is Deb Rivera. I work in the Dissemination Outreach branch, and I will be the moderator for today's event. So we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a moment, but first I want to go over some housekeeping items. As we've done in our previous webinars, the chat feature is up and running today. My colleagues and I will be using it to send helpful links and also help answer any questions as we can. Today we are also joined by Mr. Thomas Morrison from the Redistricting and Voting Rights Data Office, who will also be helping us address any questions related to redistricting data. Our question and answer session will be held towards the end of the presentation, where we will be selecting questions from the chat throughout the webinar, compiling them, and then reading them out to our presenter. To submit your question, please be sure to select the All Panelists option from the drop-down menu. This way, all of our panelists can see your question. And please make sure that you do not include personal or sensitive information along with your question. Lastly, the slide deck and the recording of today's webinar will be posted on the Census Academy site, so keep an eye out for that link in the chat. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and now I'd like to hand this off to our presenter, Tyson Weister. Thank you, Tyson.
Great, thanks, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar, 2020 Census Redistricting Data and How to Find It on data.census.gov. My name is Tyson Weister, and I work on the communications team for data.census.gov. For today, we're going to focus specifically on how to access these data on data.census.gov. So last Thursday, we had a very successful release of these data tables on the platform for data.census.gov. You may be familiar, these tables were released on August 12th. In a different file format. So it was the legacy summary file format release. Those same data were released on Thursday on data.census.gov. It's the identical data, and the Census Bureau considers both data sources official for use. The only difference is accessing it on data.census.gov is going to be more user-friendly for you. In those cases, the legacy summary file is still a good file format if you like to download in bulk, but we'll talk more about that later during the presentation. What's included with these data are 6 tables, so not a lot of information in terms of the total number of tables, but it is going to give you basic information on race, Hispanic origin, group quarters population, and housing occupancy status. These tables do cover selected geographic areas down to the block level. So certainly lots of 2020 census data being released through this particular redistricting data for the first time. As we progress into the future, we will, of course, at the Census Bureau be releasing more 2020 census data products later on. Those products will have more detailed topics in the table and table content, more tables, and more geographies. But for today, we want to show you just how easy it is to access the 2020 census redistricting data on data.census.gov that was released last Thursday. For this, we're going to walk through 4 different examples. So the first example is going to start very basic on how you can take a brief look at these tables for a single geography. As we work through the additional examples, we'll show you additional types of geography that you can access these data for, as well as functionality on the site to include how to save your results, map, and download the data. So let's go ahead and get started with our first example on how to find 2020 census redistricting tables for the United States. Moving to the live site, we do recommend using Google Chrome. It's going to give you the best speed and performance, and you simply would type in data.census.gov into the URL address bar and press enter. Once you're on the landing page here, the first thing you'll notice is that there are two ways you can get started with your search, a single search bar as well as an advanced search link. We're going to use both of these today. I like to go ahead and give the single search bar a try, especially if I'm searching for just one geography. It often gives you a quick answer to your question, and we'll show you how you can go about doing that. So for this example, if you want to access the tables we released last week, simply type 2020 census and your geography. We wanted the United States. Once you have that, just go ahead and press enter. This will take you to the all results page. It just gives you the top table, map, and web page recommendations. For today, we're going to spend a lot of time looking at tables. So I'm going to go ahead and click the tab that says tables at the top of my screen. And you can see just with those two easy steps, type 2020 Census United States, and then click tables at the top, we have been able to get directly to the tables that were released last week. There were 6 tables included with the redistricting. So let's take a look very briefly as to what data you can get from these tables. The first table shows the total number of housing units as well as whether those housing units were occupied or vacant. The second table, called race, we'll click on the left. It gives you the total population broken out across the basic major race groups. As you scroll down, people can, of course, identify with more than one race, so you just get all of that detail as you scroll through the table. The next table, Hispanic or Latino and not Hispanic or Latino by race, that gives you, of course, the total population broken out for the Hispanic population and not Hispanic population, again, getting some additional detail by race. Those same two tables on race and Hispanic origin are repeated in P3 and P4, except for the universe 18 years and over. So the first two tables I just showed you for race and Hispanic origin represent the total population. These next two tables give you that same data for the population 18 years and over. And then for the last table, you can see group quarters population by major group quarters type, table P5. This gives you information on the population that lives in group quarters such as correctional facilities, nursing homes, and college university student housing, just to name a few. This is a brand new table for the 2020 Census redistricting release. So we did provide this data through other decennial data sets in the past. If you'd like to compare this back to the 2010 census, you'd be looking at table P42 from Summary File 1. But this year around, we've released it as part of the redistricting data set. That means you get it with the very earlier release. And you can see it's very easy to access this information and start diving into the data. You can also change your geography by clicking into the single search bar and see that this process works very seamlessly for a state-level geography like Washington. Once you run the search, you'll notice Washington is in the column for your table, as well as many other common types of geographies, for example, counties, cities, and towns. Here I'm typing in Pierce County, Washington, and press enter. And we can see that our geography has been updated in the table. Moving on to our next example, the single search bar is really great to type 2020 census in a single geography. You can use the advanced search in order to more precisely select your geography and access the full set of geographies. So let's take a look at that functionality on our site so you have some additional tricks to access the data. For this example, we're also going to show you how you can access the redistricting data to compare across geographies in a table and save your results. We'll look at the Asian population in the state of Washington and Tacoma City, Washington. Moving back to the live site here, anytime you want to clear out your search and start fresh, just click in the U.S. Census Bureau logo in the upper left. going to take us back to the landing page fresh. And for our next examples, we're going to be using the advanced search. So even though it has the word advanced in advanced search, it does not mean that this is for advanced or expert data users only. We recommend the advanced search for all types of users. It's helpful because you can use it as a guided approach. So on the left-hand side, you see some filters. Just interpret those as a series of questions that allow you to get to a precise search selection represented by a checkbox. So you just kind of guide your way across those filters, looking for a checkbox as a final selection. The advanced search is also something we recommend because it allows you to access the full set of geographies available for this release. Now, the first step, I'm going to go ahead and choose the redistricting dataset filter. We'll click over where it says surveys on the left-hand side, then choose Decennial Census, and then we're looking for redistricting data. Here we can see redistricting data, Public Law 94-171. We'll check the box and see it's been added to the bottom of our screen as a selected filter. Next, we'll select our geography. Click on the left where it says Geography. Then choose State. We wanted the state of Washington. We'll scroll through the list and find the checkbox for Washington. Mark the checkbox. It goes to the bottom of our screen as a selected filter. And now we want data for the city of Tacoma. So going back one level in the panel, at the Census Bureau, we refer to cities and towns usually as a place. For a few states in the Northeast and Midwest, you may find your town or township under the county subdivision level. We're working within the state of Washington, and we'll start with place, and then follow the prompt. Choose Washington. We're going to get a list of all of the places within Washington. You can start scrolling through the list. It does load in sections, so what I like to do at this point, especially given that we want to work towards the end of the list, you can click the spyglass in the upper right and then start typing in some text. So here I'll type in Tacoma, and you can see the very first option, Tacoma City, Washington. That's the one you want that has the nice clean label. The additional variations of this provide different components of slicing and dicing the city of Washington, which is wouldn't be what most people would want right off the bat. This will give us data for the full city. Once we're happy with our selection, you'll just confirm at the bottom our two geographies and our data set. You'll go ahead and click Search in the lower right, and then choose Tables at the top. So this has narrowed our list of results down. The only difference between this, where we typed 2020 census, is we did not select a year at this point in time, so we are getting data for all redistricting tables available on our site back to Census 2000. However, your 2020 census tables, those 6 tables, are going to appear right at the top, and they're going to be the first option by default. So you see this in the product drop-down menu at the top of each table where it says 2020, and if you wanted to compare back to 2010, you can do that very seamlessly by clicking between the different products, but we're interested in 2020, so I'm going to leave that by default. And we wanted data for the Asian population, so we'll click on the table that says race. And then I'm just going to choose Customize Table to show this across our full screen. And here we can look at the data. There's a line for Asian alone, and then we can see each of our geographies are represented by a column. Based on the 2020 census, there were over 730 Asian alone people in the state of Washington, 730,000, and then in Tacoma, it was over 20,000. So anytime you've kind of gone through these steps to find data that you're looking for and you want to save your results, just want to take a moment to talk about a couple of your options. A lot of people are kind of drawn to that download button. That's going to give you machine readable output. Really great if you want to map, sort, or manipulate, kind of doing some calculations with the data using your own statistical software. anytime you want something that's going to be very viewable to you as a person, what you would want is the Excel output. It's very easy to export to Excel. You'll just click the Excel button at the top of the table and then choose Export to Excel. You'll be using Google Chrome, so in the lower left, you'll be able to open up that exported file. What it's going to show you in the first tab is information, just identifying that it comes from the Census Bureau, the table ID, and that it's from the 2020 census redistricting data, as well as some table notes as you scroll through. The second tab that says data, as you guessed, will have the data. So it's going to look very similar to what we saw on screen. Our geographies are in the columns with the corresponding data, and the very first column has all of the labels. Everything's very nicely worded, indented, and laid out, so it's easy to read, very similar to how we just saw on the table display. The other way you can save your result is to simply copy the address from your URL. So once you go ahead and copy that, share it with a colleague, or go to open it up later, it's going to take you back to the exact same table view with both of your geography selections included. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at additional functionality of the site and geography selections in the advanced search. Here I've done some research to look at the Hispanic population in Polk County, Iowa. You can see from the table that based on the 2020 census redistricting data, the population count for Hispanic or Latino in that county was 48,055 people. So really great to have that information at a high level, but what sets the decennial census apart from other surveys and programs is to be able to go into low geographic detail, including census tracts, block groups, and blocks. We're going to take a look at one of those options and start visualizing what this really looks like within the county to see areas of Hispanic population and where they're located in Polk County. So we'll compare the geographies in a map and download the data, looking at Hispanic population for all census tracts in Polk County. Going back to the live site, to clear out and start fresh, just like before, you'll click the U.S. Census Bureau logo in the upper left. And we're going to use the advanced search. This is what's going to allow us to select the census tract level geography. Before we choose our geography, we'll narrow our results to the redistricting data tables by choosing surveys, decennial census, and looking for that filter that says redistricting data PL94-171. Now we'll add in our geography on the left by clicking geography, choosing tract, and from here we follow the prompts. We choose Iowa first, then we look for Polk County, Iowa, and now we start seeing check boxes. All of the individual tracts within the county are listed here in this panel, and we have a nice option at the top that allows you to select them in just one click, all at once. Once we're happy with our selection for all census tracts in Polk County and the redistricting data filter, we'll go ahead and click Search in the lower right. Now, all of the table or the maps on data.census.gov are table-based. So that means any estimate you see in one of our tables, you have the option to create a map on data.census.gov of that estimate. When I'm creating a map, and because they're table-based, I like to actually peek at the table first and then go and map the data. This is going to help make sure that you're clicked into a table that contains data you want to map out, and familiarizing yourself with the layout will make it easier for you to select the variable on your map. So here I'm going to click Tables at the top. We wanted data for Hispanic or Latino, and these tables are pretty straightforward to where you can read the title for your third result, Hispanic or Latino, and not Hispanic or Latino by race. right off the bat, we can see the very first row of this table provides total population. And in the second row, we start seeing data for Hispanic or Latino population. In the first census tract in my results, I can see a count of 429 Hispanic or Latino. And as I scroll across, you'll see that particular number for all of the geographies we've selected. Really great to have this information in a table format and to be able to download it. But one of the nice features of data.census.gov is you can also explore this visually very easily on our maps. We're ready to go ahead and start creating the map now. So I'm going to click on Maps at the top of our screen. The first thing you want to do is make sure on the left-hand side that you're still clicked into the table that contains the data you want to map. Here we are. We can see it shaded in the orange bar for table P2. You also want to make sure at the top of your map, the Geographies drop-down menu is set to the layer you want to map out. In this case, the census tract level. And then the last step is to just make sure it's zoomed in and centered on your area as you'd like to view it. The only remaining thing is to tell the system what it is we want to map out. So it knows we want something from table P2. By default, it's giving us a map of the very first estimate in that table. That was the row for total population. And you see the word total in the upper left. That's the data variable drop-down menu. Once you click that drop-down, what you'll see is you can map out any estimate from that table, and it's laid out in the exact same way. So we saw on the second row of the table, there was data for the Hispanic or Latino population. It's also shown as the second option in the data variable drop-down menu. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click Total Hispanic or Latino, and now it's updated our map. So what this shows us are that the census tracts with darker shades of blue have higher Hispanic or Latino population based on the 2020 census compared to the census tracts with lighter shades of blue. Even if you're not familiar with this geography type, you can zoom in on our map. As you zoom in farther, you'll see more street lines and labels represented on your map so you can make sense of these areas. You can also click on an individual tract on the map and see, as an example, in Census Tract 39.02 in Polk County, Iowa, there were 1,143 Hispanic or Latino population based on the 2020 census. Changing gears, we also wanted to show how you can download the data very seamlessly on data.census.gov. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Tables to start that process. However, what I'm showing at this point you can do for any geography selection, and we have built specifically in anticipation for 2020 census data releases, the ability and functionality on data.census.gov to be able to download all 6 tables for all blocks in a state. I'm going to use my current geography selection, all census tracts in Polk County, Iowa, as an example, but know that you have lots of options to select geographies and download in bulk directly on data.census.gov. The way that you would go about downloading multiple tables at a time is to use the download link that you see on the left-hand side of the table results. The other download button that we saw earlier in the demonstration, that would allow you to download one table at a time. When you use the option on the left, I'm going to go ahead and click where it says download. You'll start to get checkboxes next to each of the results on the left. So the first 6 tables are for the 2020 census redistricting. I'm going to go ahead and click those 6 tables. Scroll back up, and then choose Download Selected. You'll see it has 6 in parentheses showing you that you've checked the box for 6 tables. You'll get a pop-up window that gives you a confirmation of what you selected, making sure that you want to download each of these 6 tables for the 2020 census redistricting data. And then you'll click the download button in the lower right. I only have a handful of geographies, so it's going to progress very quickly to 100%. If you are working with a larger geographic selection, you may need to give it a minute or two, but know that it can handle those large selections and be patient as it works to download the data. Once it's at 100%, you'll click Download Now, and then click in the lower left in order to open up that zip file. So at this point, what you're getting on the site is the same information as if you had downloaded each of these 6 tables individually. It just gives you the data all in one zip file. It makes it easier to do in fewer clicks. You'll notice there are 3 files for each table ID, and the way you'll read this is decennial for decennial census, PL for public law, the 2020 vintage, and then each of your table IDs, H1, P1, P2, etc. The file format that you'll likely want to open are the ones that say data with overlays in the naming convention. I'm going to go ahead and open up that file here for table P2. And what we're going to notice here is a file format that is machine readable. So it's going to be reversed from what we see in the previous view where we exported the file. The geographies, instead of being in the columns, they each have their own row. As you follow the row across, all of the estimates we saw on the nice table display on data.census.gov are here without any special formatting or indentation. This makes it a great file format if you wanted to work with the data in your own software. As an example, I'm going to take a peek at column D. This is the second column of data, which corresponded to the second row of our table, providing the total Hispanic or Latino population. So it's what we just looked at on the table display and what we mapped out. And as you read through these files, you'll see P2, that corresponds to table ID, P2. 002 refers to the second row of data. All right, and the last thing I wanted to point out, we did improve the way that we release these files and data for 2020 on data.census.gov. So for the 2020 redistricting data, all 6 tables and available geographies are released under one filter, redistricting data PL94-171. If you wanted to compare data back to 2010, and you're not seeing 2010 in some of the drop-down menus as you follow the steps and the examples that we covered earlier, this may be because the way the files were released were a bit different. So we're going to show you how you can access those. For 2010, there were 2 filters that were used for redistricting data in order to release the same set of 5 tables, but for different types of geographies. So in 2010, there was a national redistricting data filter. That filter is used anytime you want to access data for geographic types that can cross state-level boundaries by definition. So things like the United States, American Indian, Alaska Native areas, or metropolitan, micropolitan statistical areas as just a few examples. The other filter that was used for 2010 was the redistricting data PL94-171. This filter was released for geographies that were at the state level or below. So geographies that do not cross state level boundaries, things like counties, census tracts, blocks, block groups, cities and towns as some examples. So as an example, if you wanted to compare between 2020 and 2010, we saw earlier how you can go about finding total population. For the United States for 2020, it was over 331 million, as you can see in this table. What if you wanted to compare this back to 2010? Let's take a look at that in our 4th example, comparing data over time, total population in the United States based on the 2010 census. Navigating back to the live site, we'll go ahead and click the U.S. Census logo in the upper left, and we'll use the advanced search. We'll start by selecting surveys and decennial census, And then we're looking for the redistricting filter. Now we want a national level geography, so we're going to choose the national redistricting data filter. We'll see it's added to the bottom of our screen. Rather than memorizing those geography types that I named off just a moment ago, you can check it out for yourself directly on the site. So once you select your data set, you can click on years and choose 2010 or 2020. And then you can go ahead and choose geography. And then what you'll want to click on is show summary level toggle. All of the geographic areas that are compatible with 2010 national redistricting data are clickable at this point, and then any geographies that are incompatible are grayed out. So you don't have to memorize. You can see I mentioned United States, American Indian, Alaska Native areas, Hawaiian homelands, as well as metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas. There's a handful of other geographic types released under this particular data set as well. We want data for our purposes for the United States. So scrolling back to the top, I'll go ahead and click on United States. And remember, you're always looking for a checkbox as a final selection. Once we're happy with our search criteria, National Redistricting Data 2010 in the United States, we'll simply click on Search in the lower right and choose Tables at the top. Total population is included in a few tables, including Table P1, race, and we can see that based on the 2010 census, the total population for the United States was over 308 million. All right, so just before we start opening up for questions, want to go over a few more items of note and common questions. We do recommend using caution when searching by table ID, and that just means that you need to also verify the product in your drop-down menu. So any other survey or program on the site, the American Community Survey, economic surveys and programs, once you go through the steps to find data that you're interested in, searching by the table ID is going to be the most direct way to get you back to that exact information in the future. For the decennial census, though, they do use the same set of table IDs across different types of products and data sets. In some cases, those tables refer to different data. And you can see a simple example here on screen. On the left-hand side, I ran a search for table P1, and I'm clicked into the product filter 2010 redistricting data PL94-171. In that particular data set, table P1 provides data on race. On the right-hand side, you can see I've run another search for table P1, and in this case, I'm clicked into the product 2010 decennial census summary file 1. In that data set, table P1 gives you data just for total population and nothing else. So you can continue to search by table ID for decennial census. Just be very mindful of the product drop-down menu and what you're clicked into. The other alternative is to use the steps that we showed in the demonstration today where we select the filter. That would be a great way where you wouldn't need to worry about kind of cross-checking those things. We also recommend comparing geographic boundaries over time anytime you want to compare data. So there are a couple of different resources in our geography division to do this. The reason you would want to do this is just to see if the change in the data is a true change or if the geography boundary has changed over time. You may want to take that into account as you're interpreting the results. One way you can go about looking at these changes over time is through the TigerWeb Decennial Mapping application. That's going to allow you to visually compare boundaries from the 2010 vintage of geography to the 2020. And then another resource are the relationship files. Right now we have a 2010 to 2020 block relationship file, and we'll continue to add additional relationship files in the future. And if you need help with these two products, these are provided by our geography division, and you can reach them at the email address provided. Also, how can I learn more about the 2020 census? One great resource is to visit the link at the bottom of this slide. It's the main webpage for the 2020 census. You'll see additional important dates announced here and additional topics related to 2020 census. Our area of expertise and the focus of the webinar today is how to access the data on data.census.gov, but you'll find additional topics for 2020 mentioned here. And then, of course, if you have questions beyond how to access the data on data.census.gov, if they're data product questions, you can address them to the first email address listed on the slide, and any other 2020 census topics may be addressed to our public information office. And how can I learn more about 2020 census redistricting data? One great resource is the Guidance for 2020 Census Redistricting Data Users webpage on the left-hand side of the screen. This is a collection of educational materials to help you make the most of how to access specifically the set of tables that were released on Thursday on data.census.gov. So you'll see a variety of videos as well as PDFs with step-by-step screenshots with more tips and tricks on how to make the most of this. On the right-hand side of the screen is also the web address to the redistricting data program at census.gov/RDO if you have more general questions about the data itself or the program. That's another great resource we recommend checking out. What we showed today is the official way to access data. We do continue to make it better based on your feedback. So if you have any suggestions on how we can make data.census.gov work better for you, you'll see a link for feedback in the upper right, and that will give you an email address for you to send your feedback to us. We are in the process of updating from sedfi.feedback@census.gov to a new email address, easier to read and more fully represents what we do, called census.data@census.gov. I just wanted to note very quickly, you can send your email to either one of these addresses, and we have a team that specializes in data requests and feedback, and they're ready to help you. Going hand in hand, if you'd like to stay alerted to the latest updates and data releases on the site, we highly recommend signing up for our data.census.gov monthly newsletter. Simply visit the link on the left and choose data.census.gov update, and we'll send our newsletter to you every month. With that, we'll go ahead and I'm going to hand it back over to Deb. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyson. Okay, so in just a few moments, we will begin our question and answer session. But first, I'd like to invite you all to share your thoughts about today's webinar through an evaluation survey. Your feedback helps us design future training sessions and also lets us know how we can improve our webinars. The link to the evaluation should be in the chat box now, and it will also appear as a pop-up window once you exit the WebEx event. So if you have questions remaining after our session concludes, please feel free to reach out to one of the emails listed here. If you are a member of the public and have questions related to data.census.gov, please reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination at census.data@census.gov. Questions that are related to the redistricting data can be sent to the Redistricting and Voting Rights Data Office at rdo@census.gov, and members of the media may contact the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. And with that, let's go ahead and start up our question and answer session. Thank you to everyone who has submitted questions so far, but please know that we are still taking questions, so send those through the chat when you can. So our first question is, can you save a county map with census tracts by copying the URL for the data?
Thank you for that question. Yes, you can, as I demonstrated in the table view, you can copy and paste the URL. You can also do a similar thing for the maps. I don't have a map created, but if you copied and pasted the URL after creating the map, it would certainly save that selection for you. I'll just select a couple of states here. And just want to point out that not only does it save, the table selection and your geographies, but it also saves whatever product you selected from the drop-down menu.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, what happens if you do not select redistricting data in your search?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the focus of today were to show you tips and tricks to get you directly to the 2020 tables that were released. If you don't select redistricting data in your search and you just selected a geography, as I did in the advanced search, you would get every possible data table available for the geography you selected in your results. Generally speaking, what you will find is that the most recent data will appear near the top of the results list. So you may not see the 2020 census data necessarily in every case if it's not applicable to any topics you also selected. It may not be the very first result in your table results list if it is applicable, but it will be certainly close to the top. So it's an optional step in some cases. You're going to get the most recent data near the top of your results list, but it's just going to get you more directly where you need to go if you know right off the bat, hey, I want data from the 2020 census tables that were released last week.
Thank you. I was on mute there. Okay, so next question is, what does the Show Summary Levels checkbox do again in the geography filter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to take another peek at that right now. What I was showing in the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and make a selection. So if you don't make a selection, it's just going to give you every possible geography you can choose. Not every geography is compatible with the set of 2020 census tables that were released last week. Many of those geographies are compatible, but certainly not every single one. So if we wanted to know what was compatible with what was released last week, you can go ahead and select a data set in a year if you'd like. And, turning on the Show Summary Levels toggle, it does two things for you, really. One, this is the only view on the site where you can clearly see without clicking through everything what geographic levels are compatible or not compatible with your selection in the form of it's either clickable or it's grayed out if it's not compatible. The other reason why you may want to use the Show Summary Levels toggle is more for advanced users or users who know the 3-digit code associated with the geographic area that they want data for. There's lots of different ways of slicing and dicing Census Bureau data by geography. If you're working with common types of geographies, you don't usually need to worry about going through this step. It's just kind of nice to know if you happen to know the 3-digit code that's helpful for accessing data for your area. And then what I'll point out is anytime you make a selection, if you're wanting to learn more about how would I know what the 3-digit code is, once you make a selection here, I'm just going to choose a random census tract. You'll see there's a geography portion on your URL. The summary level is the first 3 codes in that geography portion of the URL. So census tract, this particular selection comes from summary level 140. If you have additional questions related to this, I'd recommend writing us in, but hopefully that should be a good start on the use for Show Summary Level toggle.
Thanks, Tyson. And we are getting this particular question a couple of times, so I want to reiterate that today's session is being recorded, and with the transcript, the PowerPoint slides, and of course the recording, we will be posting all of that to the Census Academy website. We're going to be sending out that link via the chat in just a few moments here. So keep an eye out for that. It should be available probably within the next 5 to 10 business days. All right, so our next question is, So in relation, when you were showing the maps, it says he's going from table to map. So can we go from a map to a table?
Yes, thank you for your question. You can certainly go from maps to tables as well. We kind of swapped back and forth of going in the census tract example, our third example, we looked at the table first, then we mapped out the data, and then we went back into the table list in order to download the table. I also just want to point out very briefly, you can select your geography on the maps as well. So if you would prefer to visually choose your geography on a map rather than typing it in the single search bar or, using the advanced search filter, what you can do from the landing page is click on map, and then the selection map is going to be the option in order to select a geography. So you'll want to click on selection map and choose a year of data that you're interested in. For this example, we'll choose 2020, and then you see all of the compatible geographies that you can select on the map for the 2020 vintage. As a very quick example, I'm just going to change it to place level geography. We had shown how you could select Tacoma, Washington using the filter in the advanced search, but you can see here, once you go to the selection map, choose 2020 and place, you can also click on areas on the map and then just choose select or deselect. And then from here, yes, you can always switch between your tables and your maps, just using the tabs at the top. Your selections will carry over, and you can see that reflected in the URL. And also, when you click into the single search bar, your search criteria will be detailed here for you as well.
Okay, thank you, Tyson. Our next question is, when pulling data for a geography that crosses county boundaries like a city or school district, is it possible to get the data disaggregated by county? I know we can get this from the Access files released in August, but I'm not sure how to do this in data.census.gov.
Yes, thank you for the question. Off the top of my head, that would be another good use case to use the show summary level toggle. So I don't know offhand if those particular ones that were referenced are summary levels that are released for this particular release. We could certainly, if you write us in, do a little more digging in general, but if you turn on this show summary level toggle and choose these two filters, this will show you all of the areas that are compatible. And generally what you would be looking for are areas that have dashes in them. Sometimes they say or part, and sometimes they say within. So I would just carefully look through this. I don't know offhand if those particular geographies are available. If there's a subject matter expert that does know that offhand and wants to chime in, you're more than welcome to let me know what that summary level is, and I can show it on screen. Otherwise, we could research this offline and figure out if that's included in this release or if it might be reflected in other Census Bureau data.
Hi, this is Tom. So it's school district as a part of what other levels of geography?
I think they wanted cities in a county and school districts in a county, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. There is different levels of geography, summary levels for school districts, but I'm not sure that we specifically have that particular summary level. So yeah, we can go back and look, but I'm not seeing it at the moment.
Great, thank you. So it may be included in potentially other data releases. It'd be a good question for us to research if you want to write in. What's our next question, Deb?
Yes, our next question is, if I am only interested in total population, can I access tract and block population in the DEC summary file table?
Yes. So the there's a couple of different products that were mentioned. The census tract and block levels are available through the release today, which is the focus of the 2020 Census Redistricting PL 94-171. It's also part of Decennial Census Summary File 1 as a product. And where's the question, was it part of Summary File 1 or is it part of the Summary File legacy format on the FPP site? I'm sure, sorry, Deb, I'm not sure if I understood the part of that, that reference.
Sure, I'll read it again for clarity. If I am only interested in total population, can I access tract and block population in the DEC summary file table?
Okay. I think that's a reference to what I was showing on screen where I had looked at P1 and had mentioned that when you go to DEC Summary File 1, that it gives you for total population. That's not available at the 2020 census release at this point in time. What's available is just the redistricting data. So if you want it for 2020, you would need to definitely use the 2020 census redistricting filter, but you can get it from the first line of table P1, total population, as well as table P2, total population.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question is there a file where I can look up newly added geographies?
In terms of that question, that would be something that our geography division, I believe, would have to speak with. You can reach them at geo.geography@census.gov. They provide all the documentation for what vintages of like the specific geographies that are available for different vintages and any documentation as far as cross-reference files we have at the Census Bureau and how those geographies may change over time.
Okay, thank you. So in the maps, can you go between natural breaks and quantile in the mapping?
Yeah, well, we have a whole webinar devoted to mapping. So I hit on just some of the most common functionality on the site. What I'll say very quickly here is when you create a map, and I'll just select a few different geographies, there's a Customize Map button on the right-hand side of the screen. So in order to get to that functionality, click Customize Map. On the left-hand side, you'll see the legend and the settings icon. Click the settings icon, and you'll see the different options to choose the way the map is broken out.
Okay, thank you, Tyson. Our next question is, do you know if all of the information from the redistricting file will be uploaded or populated into QuickFacts where appropriate?
Hey, this is Tom. I can take that question. So our understanding at this time is that the only information that is going to be or is populated in QuickFacts is specifically the 2020 population totals. At this time, we don't have plans to include additional data from redistricting specifically in QuickFacts. But we will continue to update QuickFacts according to the estimates that we've been providing in there annually.
All right, thank you so much, Tom. All right, so next question is, where can we access decennial data for ZCTAs?
Great, thank you for the question. The ZCTA level geography is currently something that's provided through other types of data sets, so it's not covered for the 2020 Census Redistricting data release. That in the past was something that was covered through Summary File 1 and other types of decennial census if you were looking back to the 2010 census data. So you'd want to be looking ahead as additional 2020 census data products are released. What the timelines for those would be, they're currently still to be determined, but we provided you the link to the main 2020 census data page, so I'd recommend checking back on that page as additional products are released to see what might be, as far as looking ahead. But typically that's something that's not covered with the redistricting release, but is covered, historically speaking, through other decennial census data products that come later on.
Great, thank you. Okay, and one more question here. Are the redistricting data the actual population counts, or are they preliminary estimates?
Hey, this is Tom. The redistricting data are actual population counts. So they're not estimates. They are data directly from the 2020 census tabulations.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, so I do believe that is all the time that we have for questions at the moment. Thank you to everyone who engaged us and participated. And have enough time to get to all of the questions, but if you have any questions remaining after the session has concluded today, again, please feel free to reach out to any one of the email inboxes that you see on your screen. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn it over back to Tyson.
Great, thanks, Deb. Just want to point out, we talked specifically on how to find 2020 census redistricting data on data.census.gov, but we have a wealth of educational material that you can access for other surveys and programs or features. I had mentioned in the Q&A as we have a webinar on mapping. All of these resources are available when you click the Help button of data.census.gov, and here you'll be able to access short videos, full-length recorded webinars, release notes, as well as answers to your FAQs and PDFs with step-by-step instructions and screenshots. We also have census.gov/academy. That is the centralized educational hub for the Census Bureau. So you'll find lots of great training there across a wide variety of topics, surveys, and programs, not necessarily focused just on data.census.gov. In addition to that, the data dissemination specialists that run Census Academy are also located across the country, and they can provide local trainings. If you'd like to request a training, there is a data dissemination specialist assigned to your area, and you can request that using the contact information in the lower right. Just want to thank you all once again so much for joining in on this webinar today. We hope you learned some valuable tips and tricks to make the most of 2020 census data, and we look forward to seeing you in a future webinar.